This is NIO's flagship, the ET9, and together in this short but highly technical video, we'll dive into its features and explore what it's capable of. And with that, hey and welcome to this new video here at joenohs, and welcome to a somewhat different video. I think I've been repeating myself quite a bit lately, but today it's once again the case. The NIO ET9 is currently only available in China, and this specific model here isn't even owned by NIO, it actually belongs to ZF instead. It's prominently displayed on the side, and they've invited us today to a technology day which is entirely centered around the vehicle's chassis system. A few weeks ahead of the IAA, they're presenting their latest innovations. Don't worry, I'll definitely make sure to share all of those details with you as well. Right after the ET9, we'll also take a look at new impressions in the area of chassis in this video. There, we'll delve into the topic of electric brakes, no more hydraulics, an e-stop procedure that allows you to come to a complete halt without any feedback. Or for instance in adaptation, low chassis, which you might have already heard about from one or another German manufacturer, but especially the steer-by-wire, and the ET9 has that too. I always find it so funny that when you have a vehicle over 5.30 meters, I just have to turn the wheel here. Not even a full rotation, so it's really just half a turn, and then the car completely spins around effortlessly. It's funny how everyone assumes steer-by-wire requires a tiny wheel and strange positioning. That's exactly what I thought when I first saw the Cybertruck. That stood out. Tesla already has relatively small steering wheels, but there it was even tinier. It's the same here, so it feels a bit strange. Of course, I need to keep that bar in front clear where the entire display is located, but in terms of feeling. And now here, when you pick up speed, the suspension changes. Yeah, but here in this curve, that's really cool. I mean, right now, I don't really have a full steer in here, and then it just feels a bit off. You know what I'm trying to say right now, yeah? Yeah, it's still very controlled. That's what I always find fascinating, because there's so much technology behind it, so many things happening, yet you can still keep the car so incredibly controlled and just keep driving. We just drove the slalom in the 5 Series BMW. But managing it with a car like this is an entirely different and much more demanding challenge. The feedback is excellent. You can genuinely and clearly feel it through the steering wheel as you drive. It's not like some, I don't know, not so video game-like, because otherwise you're still driving and you wouldn't really think about it. But you also don't think about the power steering assisting you, and you don't even consider that the steering weight is being adjusted or anything like that. So it's like there are really many points where you think, nah, you're so used to it now, that's so many. Adjustments just happen and so much is done. Now here, period. It feels extremely light. You could almost believe NIO isn't taking Europe seriously, given all the advanced technology integrated into this vehicle. These features aren't available in Europe yet for NIO. A 900-volt vehicle architecture, steer-by-wire, rear axle steering, and a direct challenge to BMW and Mercedes with their 7 Series and S-Class models. When it comes to interior luxury, it's something you typically only envision in a Maybach or highly customized vehicles. And all of this in a vehicle length of over 5.30 meters. It truly packs a serious punch. Almost a standard feature in this vehicle class is a generously sized front trunk, which can even be opened electronically with just a simple touch. For instance, a Lucid Air has that too, and with 105 liters, this one actually has enough space to easily fit a carry-on suitcase, or in daily life, the Energy Boost, my mobile charging solution of choice, which would easily fit in here along with its bag and all the adapters. For the ET9, even the new 16-amp version would suffice, so charging at 11 kilowatts, and if someone wants to say, hey, I want to try it out first, they can hide all the app functions with the light version and optionally purchase them later. But for under 500 euros, you can already have the product, then configure the adapters, and with the code below the video, you can even save 5%. Later, through an update, you can charge with PV or handle the billing for your company car seamlessly. And this development was really good for you because it also shows that NIO is thinking ahead. Because unfortunately, it hasn't been available until now, so just one click and it drives back again. But even so, the form and design language are very interesting, because when you think about it, if it's supposed to compete with an S-Class or a 7 Series BMW, at least in the future, when it eventually makes its way to Europe, you would naturally assume it's a sedan. However, if you take a closer inspection of the hood height and the overall design language, it's immediately apparent that it's a hybrid size, seamlessly combining elements of a crossover and a sedan. You don't really know for sure. We recently had it with the Polestar 4. There are more and more vehicles nowadays that fall somewhere in between. And that's just how it is. Cool features like the rotatable NIO logo, inspired by Rolls-Royce style. And also, not to be overlooked, on the side there are now LiDAR sensors integrated as well. So not just on the roof anymore, but also here. I don't know if it's important for the vehicle size or because of the expanded autonomous driving capabilities, because this one is allowed to operate at level 2++ in China, meaning it can even navigate urban areas autonomously. Let's take a look at how that will look in Europe. The 120 kilowatt-hour battery can still be either charged or swapped out as an option. If I knew where it's heading, it moves upward here, and in China, the vehicle can support charging speeds of up to 600 kilowatts without any issues, assuming you have the 120 kilowatt-hour battery thanks to the over 900 volt onboard architecture, and that means from 10 to 80% in 14 minutes. And that almost renders the battery swapping, for which NIO is known, obsolete. Because whether you swap the battery in 5 minutes or recharge it in 14, feel free to write in the comments what you think about it. I personally find it easiest to plug in, take a quick bathroom break, grab a coffee, and then head back out to continue driving. And with swapping, it's the issue, at least for now, that you need to remain seated in the car. And then you're stuck in the car for those 5 minutes, after which you park the vehicle and then make your way to the rest stop, McDonald's, or wherever else. And sometimes I'm not so sure if it wouldn't be smarter to have a charging time of 15 minutes, essentially spending the same amount of time but without just sitting in the car doing nothing. Earlier, I was driving behind the ET9 and simply shared my impression into the camera. I'll show it to you here. It's really a strange sight to see. It's somehow a very odd and unusual vehicle proportion. Also quite interesting, I always find it cool to see cars from the outside, but it gives off a completely different overall impression when they're moving and not just standing still somewhere. And it's not that different when you're actually behind it, but it's still tricky. The car rises high with its side edge tapering back smoothly. It's a truly unique design, striking a careful balance to avoid the SUV category while still maintaining a bold, distinctive and modern presence. But not entirely a sedan either. And with 5.30 meters in length, it still has to look sharp and stylish. And beneath this trunk lid hides, as I noticed, truly just a lid because it doesn't fully open up the entire trunk volume. Of 450 liters, at least according to the specs. That's fine. Given the vehicle's length, it's also quite deep inside the trunk compartment. In terms of width, there's also a bit of flexibility, and I think the loading hatch is just fine. Then you don't have to load from above as much, but it's also clear that more emphasis is placed on the fridge for the interior rather than the trunk. I also completely ignored the retractable rear spoiler. I know usually you take up space back there on the right, but honestly it hardly makes a difference here. The car is so long, it's so comfortable. I can easily do whatever I feel like doing. I can open the window or just choose to open the right one instead, no problem. This is really crazy, and if I press the window switches up again here, the sunshade even rolls up. And I can also operate the shades on the right and left sides separately up here, which means when you're being chauffeured in the back, you couldn't care less what the person on the right wants because you can darken the whole thing. And the fact that it's a chauffeur-driven vehicle is also evident here. This table, though it's only for the right side now, so there's already a slight difference to note, but honestly, have you ever seen this in a car before? I know, Maybach and the like, but it's really cool to see how you can work here in a business class airplane style, operating all of this so seamlessly and efficiently. It's impressive. There's even a small makeup mirror included, and it's really, I mean, everything is high quality craftsmanship. You really shouldn't underestimate this here. I might end up breaking something on the prototype. So point. And back down again. Perfect. The power socket is located right here. I'm genuinely quite impressed. The small display rises up when you enter the vehicle. That means if no one is sitting in the back, it stays down. We have a completely continuous center console running from the back to the front. And here, a storage compartment. I mistakenly said it was in the back earlier. It's not a fridge, it's just a regular storage compartment. But I'm genuinely pleasantly surprised. The question is, how often will you actually see this in Germany? The question is also, what else will happen here? For instance, on the left rear, what can I do? I can extend a footrest, practically speaking. I'm just taking you along. I won't show too many details because unfortunately I don't have the time for that right now. I can adjust it physically, and I can now move the leg rest in any angle I want, just like using a joystick. It all works quite smoothly and quickly, even with the right seat folded forward. And now, adjusting the backrest into a reclined position. It does get a bit tight in the front though, but it's still functional and quite comfortable to use in this setup. But that's pretty cool. Driving here, it's also smooth, ultra high quality. And the 5 people who actually decide on it in Germany will be really happy when it finally arrives. Up front, the doors open and close electronically. The cool part is there are buttons up here and down here, so you can still reach it even when the door is open. And when I open the door here, a small display pops up directly from this massive display strip I mentioned earlier while driving, providing me with a small camera feed for added visibility and convenience. To see what's happening behind me in the event that I mistakenly open the door, or if the door stops, I can see why that is. But when I signal, which I also found quite interesting, the camera still appears on the main screen. It now stands completely free in a landscape format, so no longer that almost square one we were used to from NIO. And here there are also some compartments. Right here, just a small compartment that holds magnetically. Here's a center console featuring an additional lockable compartment along with a spacious center armrest that opens to the side. USB-C ports practically everywhere and a very, very high quality material feel. Also, S-Class-like here with these cushions in the headrests, excellent seating comfort, and that neo-typical material feel. You have to say, NIO really has this already in all their models. Whether it's the ET5, ET7 or the SUVs, everything already available in Germany, they really do this well. And up here you have the option of selecting either an electric, meaning a digital, or a traditional manual rear view mirror. And the rear window is really tiny. That's when it really pays off to switch here. And here at the front, you'll find the two adjustment options for the shade. Alternatively, as is typical, you can easily manage it through the display interface. It now features a fresh interface paired with even smoother, more responsive software. So everything runs incredibly fast. Here are the games. Here, there will likely be video streaming services and more available for Europe once again. That's really exciting. The only thing I'm still thinking about is this front display layer. It looks really nice visually, it's impressive, but in terms of positioning, I just have to say it's a bit off. The steering wheel can be adjusted to sit quite high up or positioned quite low down, allowing you to comfortably operate all the controls. There's a reason why the ET9 is parked here today. Of course, the steer-by-wire system is from ZF, and currently it stands as the first to be in series production, at least from ZF's perspective. Also officially announced for road use, I did a bit of digging online to thoroughly verify and confirm this information. I was in the USA last year and got to drive the Tesla Cybertruck. When you examine it closely, you can notice some components of this system, and then you can assume that the rest is also from ZF. The exciting part is that they say, especially when they handle the entire system and not just install individual components, they can offer even more. For instance, feedback for the driver so that you don't have this completely decoupled feeling from the steering wheel, since there's no longer a physical connection to the road, but instead it's fed back to the steering wheel through an additional motorized feedback system. I found it very interesting and exciting myself, and the system's biggest advantage is that you can vary the steering angle. That means when I'm in a parking situation, I can steer slightly, but I can also turn the wheels extremely sharply whenever it's necessary. When driving at higher speeds, the same steering angle results in a smaller angle at the axle, which significantly enhances overall stability. And I could already explain that to you in the NIO earlier. Beyond that, there was even more cutting-edge technology to explore and experience, such as a completely new approach to braking. At first, it might sound unexciting, but when you look into the details, you think, wow, there's so much you can do with it. Because anyone who's ever sat in a vehicle where the pedal feel was off will only wish for the braking system to be adjusted. And with a cable system, meaning a full steer-by-wire braking setup, that becomes entirely possible. The braking impulse through the pedal travel is exclusively directed to a sensor, which then actively simulates the resistance. And what's output can be fully customized, optionally for recuperation, optionally for the actual braking pressure. And it even allows you to come to a complete stop very comfortably and smoothly without any issues whatsoever. And I could see that feature in the Enyaq and the Lyriq, and in the Lotus Eletre there was also this smooth transition to a complete stop. Yes, not entirely. In the end, we even have to power the motor in reverse. Oh, I see. It is then powered in reverse, and that's right at the end. There we see. Okay, another exciting topic. The topic is braking. Many, especially when they get into an electric car for the first time, say that it feels too rough. They have no sense for it because the sound is also missing. And now having a system here called e-stop, which I was able to try out just now. I braked as effectively as possible, and now I'll show you the results here. I was even praised by the development company sitting beside me. Naturally, there shouldn't be a stop line that you're required to aim for directly. Thanks. But then here with the e-stop activated just to brake, that's already a whole different story because you don't experience that rolling back anymore. That's really cool. I'm standing and didn't have that familiar braking feel. You know what I mean? No matter how skilled you are at driving, whether it's in a limo service or something else, I don't think you can match the level of precision that this system here delivers. And the way it leverages the vehicle data, it's fascinating to see because that's just one of many aspects at play here, something I think most people wouldn't even consider, that it can be used for this purpose too. Even on a hill, especially downhill, the car stops exactly where it should, smoothly and without that jarring sensation you usually get. Continuing in the Skoda Enyaq, and those familiar with the vehicle and the platform know that usually there's only a drum brake at the back. It's often criticized, particularly in performance models like the GTX or Skoda RS, that it's disappointing to see a drum brake at the rear visible through the wheel. And here in the model, it's different in the prototype. That means we have a hybrid system, a combination of a standard hydraulic brake. So when I press on it now, the brake engages smoothly and effectively. Then essentially, the brake fluid is still used to brake at the front. At the rear, however, there's an actuator, to put it in simple terms, and it adjusts the brake pads onto the brake disc, ensuring that the vehicle comes to a complete and controlled stop smoothly. And that's really fascinating. I'm curious about the purpose of this hybrid system, and naturally I looked into it for you as well. And according to ZF, the primary focus is on the markets where they say, yes, they still prefer to maintain a hydraulic brake at the front, but particularly at the rear. In America, where there are heavy pickups and similar vehicles, then the option to implement an even more reinforced parking brake system overall. This is done via the electric motor and a locking mechanism. If I accelerate and brake briefly, you'll see it in the center animation. How the brake pressure is distributed front and rear, and how the brake pedal is essentially simulated for me in real-time operation. Because you have to imagine, you're braking, you press the pedal, and normally you'd also have a certain feedback or resistance. A resistance, and that has to somehow come back in here. There's still a physical connection at least behind it, and in the worst case with this hybrid system, you could at least still press through. You can still press through and brake at the front without any redundancy. However, with the fully electric system, that option is entirely no longer available. Completely without fluid, it works in the version that incorporates 4 actuators at the brakes, ultimately leading to 4 smaller, almost noticeably more compact brake units overall. And when I press here, I don't feel any difference. And I also think, just like with the Skoda earlier, the brake pedal and the pedal travel, when you can control it dynamically well, it feels very natural and responsive. It just doesn't feel different. It's not like here in Lübeck where I think, oh, something has changed here compared to the Skoda because I wasn't happy with the pedal travel before. Admittedly, it's been a while since I last drove the Lübeck, most recently at the driving event. That's really exciting. So now I'm driving here, and not for a single moment do I feel like I'm thinking, oh no, I don't actually have a hydraulic or physical connection anymore between the pedals and the brakes at all. I'm driving here quite casually, and when I want to brake, I just brake and it works. And I think that's the case with many things, that you just don't think about it too much and the end customer won't notice anyway. Maybe you'll come across it somewhere someday, or perhaps you'll hear that the new car XY is launching with an advanced brake technology or not. But honestly, if it functions just like before, and I can still brake here, why should I even bother worrying about it when the parking brake's braking power is even stronger anyway? If I have faster response, especially with safety features like being able to control it beyond the brake pedal travel, whether it's an emergency braking situation or something like that, that opens up so many possibilities. In addition to being less wear prone because you don't need brake fluid, allowing for adjustments as the brake pads wear down, the positioning motor detects it and can precisely adapt the pressure at that specific point whenever it's actually necessary. All of that is really just advantages, and I believe the fear can be addressed relatively quickly. On the topic of the suspension, NIO with the ET9 also demonstrated that they could drive a tower of various wine glasses over an obstacle course without any issues, thanks to their active suspension system. But that's not from ZF, because with ZF I could still imagine an active suspension system, an air suspension setup, and even a frequency selectively controlled, well, a semi-selective damping system. Quite interesting, but nothing particularly new. There were no prototypes involved. I'm not allowed to name the car manufacturers that had installed it, but if you just Google it, you'll quickly figure out who uses something like that. A key point was how all the chassis components work together, something you rarely consider, as cars often include various parts, just like with the ET9. from various manufacturers, and ZF has made it their mission to centralize that system, regardless of whether the component is sourced from them or another supplier. And as a result, with all the sensor data that is being read out, the vehicle can be controlled more comprehensively and efficiently. This is how an aircraft flies during the day, and this is what we have now as I'm moderating. This ranges from the diagnosis of issues such as a loose wheel bolt, which an algorithm can detect based on the geometry of the landing gear. Exactly. Not like in Lotus Emerald Critter Thrower, especially not jumping back in afterward. I'd really rather not know that this is ours now. And for such an error to occur in the car without the driver actually noticing it, even down to the adjustment of the tire itself. You might think, what's the deal with that? But cars are usually developed for a target tire, meaning a car manufacturer assumes, hey, our car will hit the road with, for example, a Michelin Pilot Sport tire, and they design everything around it so that the suspension characteristics are perfectly matched to this tire. Now, Goodyear, here as a tire manufacturer, has teamed up with ZF and developed a system and algorithm that allows the suspension to adapt based on braking behavior, chassis control, and many other parameters. It can adjust accordingly, so if I install winter tires or the car has completely different tires, the car can compensate for that, and I found that very fascinating to see, that all the suppliers and accessories collaborate seamlessly to enhance the car as a whole, and that it's not just limited to their own components. I found that aspect truly remarkable and incredibly impressive. I think there's much more I could have uncovered for you today during this test drive, but it's too much for this video, and honestly, I'm not entirely sure how it resonates with you, and that's why I'm really excited to hear your feedback in the comments. On one hand, there's the NIO ET9, and on the other, there's this combination of technology from a supplier providing the platform and a vehicle that can seamlessly work with this technology. If you want to experience more from ZF, you'll see them at this year's IAA in Munich. They have a trade show stand there, not a press booth, and you can explore it all in detail on site. But they also mentioned that most things you truly learn by actually going there, and that's only possible here on the premises and during a special event like this one. If you enjoyed the video, then please go ahead and subscribe below or leave a comment with suggestions on what I could improve in the future. Up here's my latest NIO review, and down here's another tech video.